Welcome to the Gregarious Mammal Podcast. This is Chris speaking. Welcome you to this episode where we start the first few interviews we recorded in our trip to Vilnius and Lithuania. And thanks very much to Telesoftus for organising and sponsoring that trip for us. And in this episode, we first speak to Monica of bit&byte, which is a school programming class, and is a very interesting person to speak to. And then in the second half, we speak to Paulius of Infobalt, who are a trade association for tech companies in Lithuania. So two very different talks covering two different aspects of technology in Lithuania.
So I'm Monica Kutkute, and I run a Creative Technology Academy for kids 7 to 12. I ran out of a passion to create world-changing, money-making startups, and came back to the roots of myself wanting to make impact when living in a small country and also living globally with my mind and the tools I have. So I've started from education, which I experienced personally as a painful process, and school was boring to me. And I thought, education, and what can I add to my education? What experience of my previous jobs and insights can bring to the 21st century education? And technological literacy and understanding how tech products are made, where they're coming from, who are they serving, where are they heading. The thought that I thought it's both important to Lithuania as a economy, because we're too small to sell cheap workforce. So we need to sell mind. To sell mind, we need to start with the kids to understand their potential of their minds. And technology is one of the best tools to navigate and still have the ability to be creative and play around and be a world citizen and still being local. And kind of connecting these dots and also trying to make a new language for people of 21st century to communicate. So it's not English, it's not Lithuanian. It's the work language, is kind of the future language. So I started with the Saturday Club for Kids.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you want to maybe walk us through a bit of the curriculum and what you cover in the courses?
So we work basically through all school years. So this year, for example, kids had 30 Saturday lessons. We work in the offices of companies. So we do mainly Saturdays because then we occupy existing amazing, fancy offices. Yeah. And also because our teachers, mentors, how we call them, are mainly people from tech industry. So it's kind of like a part-time job to them. It's giving back. They earn money. There's no volunteering because it's volunteering to me sounds as a one-time act.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you need to commit,
it shows you don't have a sustainable idea.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So kind of they're all paid and they're tech industry people. So they breathe what they teach. And I guess the content comes from something, very popular like MIT Scratch, which is, all over the world, to things like Google AI models. We play with logics offline. We do design thinking. We do music engineering. We do VR world building and some prototyping. We do microbit, of course. We love my BBC microbit in Lithuania. And we do some mechanics, some simple circuitry, but not too heavily on hardware. Yes. It's more about mixing up and thinking, I have this idea. What tools do I need to kind of pull them together? And of course, when children get older, like when I say older, I mean 10, 11, 12, they can go deeper into kind of a bit more complex into programming languages. So they try a bit more of JavaScript, Python, and we'll be experimenting with cybersecurity next year and doing some hacking because that's what kids love.
I had 2 questions. Now I think you've given me 3. But the first one was, so you mentioned in our take 1 that you came from London with the idea back here. So the first question would be, computer classes for children, generally speaking, there's something you mentioned that I think makes you different, and we'll come back to that in a minute, is a fairly common idea.
Yeah.
So was it that there was no one else doing this in Lithuania before you started, or was it very much just schools and things?
In a very kind of project-to-project base, there were quite a few. And we still also have a very strong robotics scene. But robotics are, for some, like 10%. And the other 90%, they still need technological literacy. Not even talking about the girls, because we have a 40-60% split of girls and boys in our classes. And robotics have 10-90.
Really? Wow.
And which is, sad. And I'm mostly proud of kids from day one starting working in diverse team. Because they don't question it anymore.
Exactly.
And I came from London 2012, and I was working in a startup, Lemon Labs, who was acquired actually by a British company, Treatwell. So we were acquired, and I was on maternity leave with my twins, and I was thinking, what's next? And I came back to this idea that I really need to feel that I'm making a difference. Otherwise, why should I bother? Because in tech scene, you have to work super hard, be always on the edge, etc. I just got a bit tired. And I wouldn't say education is an untiring industry, but it has more meaning to me personally.
And what you're teaching, how does it align with what they learn at school? Like, what kind of technology do they learn at school?
It's very different from school stuff, because at school they only have one lesson a week from fifth grade, so it's 45 minutes.
One?
Yes. So, and it's, a lot of kids, and we work in small groups, 6 to 8 kids maximum in a group, so it's very personal. They go deeper, they play around together, they share projects, and the main thing from schoolwork is that we actually go and play with technology rather than learn it for the grade.
Yeah, for sure.
And the other thing is that we discuss with the kids whatever they want to do next. We don't tell them. We exchange.
So you're teaching them how to think.
Exactly.
And how to conceptualize.
We have so many times people crying during the lesson. Kids getting angry at themselves because they care, but they don't have the habit, because technology for them is play. Like this guy, he's just consuming it, having the media. And when it comes to building, they're like, no, I can't do this. It's impossible. And I'm saying impossible. The word is illogical. We can't use it in computer science.
And actually, you've come back to, again, something you mentioned in Take 1 that really sparked my interest. But firstly, that's one thing I would say, is that there's often this cliche that young people, whatever that exactly means, have a better handle on technology than older people, which I often find not to be true, because often, yes, they're more comfortable using it, but you're very right in that doesn't make them any better at understanding how it works or building for it, actually. But the one aspect that you mentioned earlier as part of the curriculum that I thought was interesting was not just the coding class. And that's actually something that is fairly widely done in the world. There's lots of resources for children. But you also mentioned how it works in the more business way and the ethics side. And this is actually something I personally find very interesting, because especially now as we've all become consumers and we are all, as the phrase goes, if you're not paying for it, you are the product. And this is actually something that children do not understand at all, and is incredibly important. And even adults, a number of times I've been in Google events, and Google actually are pretty open with how they make money.
That's right.
But still so few people are aware. And when they find out, they're like,
People still question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why does it have an ad that when I went to a place,
Yeah.
knew I was going there?
And actually, I think
Because you checked in and you in the settings you said, you use my data and
But this is an aspect that I think is taught very poorly. And when we were I think we were all possibly slightly different in age, but like the stuff we got taught at school was still very much just as consumers, not
didn't
as
have anything.
But I think it's an aspect that gets not taught enough was how the businesses make money and understanding that, and then making your own call. Fine, people who have acquired that knowledge can make their own call about, and I'm happy with Google and Facebook doing this.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, you can't make that decision, and it's something that I don't think is taught enough. So, firstly, congratulations on doing it. Yeah. Secondly, I'd be interested to know how you do it. How do you teach that without it just sounding like kind of telling off almost?
Yeah. So first thing is, I totally agree, and I guess first schools need to start addressing the issue of critical thinking. It's not the technology, not the math, etc. It's critical thinking, and that comes down to the art of mentoring. Teachers are not to tell or to teach. Teachers are meant to lead on a journey and ask questions when they need to be asked. They don't need to tell the person what he needs to do. They need to ask if he understands what he's doing. And I guess that's the luxury we have with small groups, that we know the kids and we kind of feel if they're struggling and we kind of address the issue right away. It's like he came up with an idea, I'll build this VR world where I'll shoot this and I'll shoot that. And then you question it. Is shooting makes the game any better? Maybe you can swap it for this or that. Or when it comes to kind of artificial intelligence, I want my robot to be, to do my homework, etc., all these things. And then the question, so what will you think about? And all these little comments, etc. And that's not moralization. It's just asking them to think and not avoiding of thinking situations, because that's what I guess schools lack because of the teaching, giving knowledge to kids thing. Teacher is standing and everyone is sitting, and now kids, they know they're so smart. They know that the knowledge is in the phone. They can just Google it, but they want a conversation. They want to be heard. And technology is always, they're very curious about technology. And if there are no adults that they can trust who teach them understand technology, they'll stay online, forums, gaming, isolation. They'll miss the social contact. They'll miss this inconvenient social situation that builds them up as a human who understands technology rather than technologist who doesn't understand human.
A couple of things I'm thinking as you're talking is, one is the people I know with children say one of their biggest struggles is getting children away from technology. As in particularly, like you said, as either they're playing games or they're on Snapchat or doing something, sometimes social. Or secondly, the issue, and I know it's even an issue where we live in Germany, where some classrooms have one computer, that's it. How do you, I'm not suggesting this is your responsibility as a school or anything like that, but how do you deal with the equity issue of access to technology? I mean, that's a
very deep question. It's a very hard one. So
really tough.
We have 800 kids in our Saturday school.
800?
Yes.
800, wow.
Yeah. So we just opened up in Berlin, and we're fingers crossed for Hamburg. Looking forward
Berlin?
to... because one of our teachers just wanted to move to Berlin and start there.
We actually live there.
Oh, nice, nice. So she's doing it there with Kleiderkreisel or Vinted, the Lithuanian second-hand. They're big in Germany, but they're rivals with eBay, and they're opening up in UK, growing bigly with Vinted. So it's like a second-hand place market.
Yep.
And so basically. Yeah, it was her choice. She was one of our teachers. She said, I want to move there and I want to open up a school. Do it.
It's interesting because they do have a lot of the kind of more open tech events there, like the hack camps and things have a lot of stuff for kids, but it's still very much about the making and not the other side of it.
It's first thing is it's all about coding.
Yeah.
And second thing is all project based again. Event from event, and education is about continuity.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you learn.
And that's the difficult part of education because you can't stop. I can't stop and go to Bali for 6 months because I have lessons. I have kids from socially sensitive backgrounds that I sometimes need to make sandwiches and take them to the class because there's no one to take them, things like that, I have to be, and as an example, I had a 3-day holiday for myself and the flight was at 12 and I had a meeting at 10 because I needed to secure scholarships for my kids to go to the summer camp that we're doing a biotech summer camp this summer. So I just need them because no one cares for them. And I truly believe that technology is a way to scrap social boundaries. Your computer doesn't care about your nails, my nails, your hair, you're tall, whatever, who you are, or, who your parents were or are. And
how do you fund it?
Yeah, actually continuing Kate's question, do you charge for the classes?
Like, how do you fund it?
We charge, so we are a social business,
of course.
but we're a self-funded social business. We charge kids. So basically parents pay for some of the kids, like in Vilnius. We also have 400 kids in the regional town, the smaller towns, who are funded by one of the web development companies, DevBridge.
That's awesome.
So they made this commitment to invest for 10 years so they can grow their own generation. And
so they're almost growing their new workforce in a way.
Yes and no. Society, workforce, things like that. But kids leave us.
Sign something saying they have to go and work for their company.
It's not the army.
And I guess they're by this example trying to show to other companies because they're mostly American based, their business is mostly American based, they are trying to show what real corporate responsibility looks like. It's not only
and the
techie
positives
events.
and negatives of America versus European models.
What kind of response do you get from the local schools? Do they feel like, do they wish
jealous.
they could do it, or are they kind of like...
Various. I would say various. Now we do... So basically, because I know everyone in tech in Lithuania and I'm the badass, I can kick their asses and say, guys, you live an amazing life in this opera and login stage, but there are kids in the rural areas who know nothing about technology and they still think that winning X Factor is the best thing in the world.
That's aspiration.
It's true. Because aspiration is built through YouTube, Instagram, television, and things like that, and they don't know the reality. They don't know who actually earns the money in Lithuania. And so I started this 100 school project because Lithuania turned 100 years as a dependent country this year. So I'm kicking asses and taking all these engineers who are around here to rural schools, do a coding exercise workshop with kids, and do a 30-minute talk and say what they're doing and who they are, who are the people in tech industry. Because there's people from customer service to CEOs, and they all need to be seen. All the women, the girls, and then kids. They might not. They're so different. Some like coding more, some like speaking more. And that's how tech industry is.
There's a role
diverse
for everybody, right?
Exactly. I want kids to understand that it's not about if, it's about where in the tech industry they will end up, and that there is opportunity. Maybe they're in a rural school now, but the internet is there, the global thing is there, so they're themselves can actually start step by step building, those skills. At least they open up for the opportunity, so they see little things around them. You just
it's exposure as much, and it normalizes it, rather than being for those clever people or those rich people. Or something.
And so there's 3 things. One, so this kicking those snobby asses and showing the division of people in the tech scene and the normal people.
Exactly.
The other thing is kind of to show the kids that we care. And also the third one is to kind of understand how the schools work. So we just been to 25 schools, so another 75 come in autumn. So the first thing is kids love it. They want to know more about technology. Teachers are afraid, and schools are not ready. So who's responsible for that? We can give the content for the kids to continue to learn. We can, train the teachers by, for example, with, taking some money from Google or other tech company to give us, so we can mentor the teachers in the regular schools. But the government needs to take care of the infrastructure.
They're not?
I think it's just very slow, and there's other problems usually, and I'm in a good position because I'm not educational policy person. I'm a startupper.
Yeah.
So I just cut corners.
You just jump in and get it done.
Exactly.
You don't have to wait for
if I need money.
piece of paper or
yeah,
something.
exactly. And when you say about funding, I know how much money there is in tech industry, so I just know who to ask.
Yeah.
And like you said, if all these companies have in some way, shape or form, some kind of social or corporate responsibility policy or practice or something, that they, you often have to remind them they have it.
Exactly.
You have these funds,
exactly. And also, I'm not going for earning $1 million. I always go with it saying, I need this and this because I'll do this, this and that. So it's sustainable and it's transparent.
Have you ever had a point with some of these partnerships where they've wanted to put an agenda across in the curriculum that you weren't comfortable with, or not yet? Or,
not yet.
And in the future, how do you think you'd cope with that?
I would just say no.
Okay.
Easy for me.
One question I have, I was thinking about, was, as you were talking earlier, that we've talked about young people as consumers of technology. Do you think this will translate to other kind of critical thinking in other parts of their life? Because I'm thinking about television, for example, the way young people are bombarded with advertising, and like we said, this very superficial way of, you've got to look this way and you've got to have these material possessions. Do you think some of these lessons they're learning, even if they don't go and work in tech, could come out in other ways?
I think being a very good consumer of technology makes you less able to live a reality. So, as one of the speakers yesterday, Aurelia, mentioned that focus is the new IQ. So, usage of technology is definitely opposing it.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm trying to explain to the kids, I'm giving them examples of how the brain understands technology, all these impulses, little, pop-ups, etc., because it's so loud without even the noise. Because for a brain, it can't just take all these visual information. It just picks whatever it wants. So basically, they manipulate the one who watches. So I think we have to be technologically conscious, first of all, as adults, because kids are just a reflection of us not understanding what we're doing, of us not understanding and not being attentive to how we use technology. And when they go deep into the usage, it's very hard for them to get out, really, because it's built to be used heavily.
Adults too.
Exactly.
We've both been remarking recently on how our kind of attention and focus has become challenged, and we've both been doing our own kind of methods to attempt to reverse some of that.
Yeah, and then people, and then what people do, they start meditations, they look for improvement camps, whatever, they cut on sugar, try diets, sports, whatever, but they don't change the core. Somehow someone convinced us that juggling is the way to be. I really believe for a long time that me being a good juggler is my advantage.
Yeah.
But it's maybe advantage in a job, but not to me as a person.
Well,
Because I'm scattered here.
It's advantageous, obviously, like if you have children and you need to.
Oh yeah. But But we can do. But we can when we talk about logistics and stuff. I guess it's in a way unavoidable, you know, and you kind of get used to it. But when it comes to work and like social media, etc., your brain doesn't jump that quickly off and off. From notification to notification. Someone yesterday mentioned, I really love that example. For example, Instagram, they don't show you likes together. They notificate you every like. Every like.
Yeah, these
every
things,
like.
these things are cool.
Every like.
Dark patterns and anti-patterns.
Exactly.
That's not.
it's quite simple.
It's an interesting example. Some of the bad examples are the ones that actually deliberately lead you down a certain path.
Yeah.
Kind of
For example, for me, I train myself. I'm training myself off social media. So I turned off all notifications. I'm not reachable instantly. I'm not real time. I'm present, but I'm not real time. And that's why I guess the problem with, the kind of juggling and, because the brain is not present.
Yeah.
And we kind of give a brain to pressure to be at real time as the technology is.
Yeah.
Which is not. And that's kind of I think that's the difficult question for the 21st century AI revolution coming, and how we explain it to the kids, because we so easily manipulate the technological terms when talking about a human. And we put the same words and we simplify and kind of connect them as if they were the same. And then we don't question it anymore. So critical thinking, I guess, is just, it's everything when it comes to imagination and making choices, understanding, all the fake news, etc., etc. And it's very hard because adults don't know themselves if they have critical thinking.
I think this is an interesting thing. We focus on teaching children, but adults are just as.
But the thing is with adults that through children, you get adults to the conversation, because you can't get children without adults intervening, And for example, we don't have lessons for parents, but within monthly newsletter, we send them, news about what's happened, etc. And then we set some tips, some nice articles from the world on, AI revolution or deep learning, on technology usage. Sometimes we translate, sometimes we just send it, to New Yorker just to read, and maybe they never came across that article. But even if 10% read it, some month one reads, the other one then tells to a friend, and that's education.
So it's exposing people to new ideas and new ways of thinking.
So you said you have 800 students in Lithuania, and how many in Germany right now?
We opened up April only. So So we have 15 kids there, and hoping to expand to 50, 60 for the next school year. And then I guess starting to establish bit by bit kind of partnership with local companies.
And as far as I could tell, you offer in Lithuanian, German and English. Is it kind of very much up to the kids and the teacher?
Yes.
Berlin is obviously a fairly international city, so it's probably going to be a bit of a mix.
Yes.
I guess regional Lithuania is going to be mostly Lithuanian.
Yes. The technical language, of course, is English, because that's how technology works. But communicational is local.
So the question I've been asking a lot of people, and obviously you're already running in multiple countries, but what's it like? So starting an entrepreneurial venture in Lithuania, what are the positives, what are the negatives? Feel free to say as many or as...
Yeah. I guess the most negative thing, but that's my thing, is that you take it personally. Because in a small scene, everybody knows you, and every little failure is seen. And you usually, if you hire people, you hire them through personal connections, and it's kind of a bit of a community, family-like thing. So it's personal, and you kind of do it as well, for your country, because you want to live good, from kind of egoistic reasons. But you still feel, so that's, I guess, the negative thing. And the positive thing, you can live in a small country where you know everything, and you can travel with your mind.
Yeah.
And the city is convenient.
So the size on both sides in some respects is an
Yes.
You're not the first person to say that, actually. For different reasons. But
Yeah.
Is there a lot of help for startups here?
I'm not a startup in the Lithuanian sense, because I'm more of a social business.
Yeah.
But
even then, I don't know.
like, is there, I don't know,
You know, the problem with me,
incubators or hubs, or is it more
there's
about
quite a lot,
people
especially in fintech and
wanting to make this
blockchain.
big profit and kind of, you know,
I think it's finally we have some companies who made through kind of big investments and then, failed and, had to fire people and then rehire people, all these. So at least we have companies that we can learn from.
I heard the fintech one a lot. Actually, it's interesting because everyone hears about, when London exits the EU, it's going to be Frankfurt, never. But actually, I was told here that the approval because once you get approval in one country in the EU, you have approval for the whole EU. But here is actually the easiest.
Yeah.
So there's actually a surprising.
Our Lithuanian bank did some exceptions, so kind of, and we said, and they're advertising that to the British companies or to international companies who are in the UK, saying, guys, when Brexit comes, we're here. About all the kind of tech scene, is it hard? Is it easy?
Yeah.
I'm very bad at answering this because I'm the person who usually thinks of what I can do rather than what I can't do.
But you're also bringing a mirror to the industry itself.
Almost
not exploiting is a bad word, but using the advantage and disadvantage they have to your own.
Exactly. But that's I really openly say to the industry, guys, you're the ones who have the most money in the economy now.
that's right.
Please give back.
Well, my name is Paulius Vertalka, and I'm director of Infobalt.
Okay.
And Infobalt is not a company; it's a business association.
Okay.
It's like a tech council. If you go through the American prism of wording, like a national trade association. If you're looking from the European prism, anyways. So we represent Lithuanian ICT industry. Basically. So we have about 170 members as of right now. So primarily, most of them are IT development companies, IT product development, telcos, related research institutions, fintechs, and then related legal and consulting service providers. So sort of like an ecosystem that, at some point we can call ourselves like a representative of Lithuanian digital economy, some sort, but it's still under development.
Well, you actually, I've asked a lot of questions to some of the people we've spoken to who don't always know the answer to some of them because they only see their kind of immediate area, but you're actually the perfect person to probably answer a lot of those sorts of questions.
Hopefully.
I think where to start, because usually they've been like the and finally questions in all the other interviews. With you, it's kind of the whole purpose of it.
Don't ask me specific questions.
No,
I can explain you the trends and tendencies.
Well, that's exactly what we're interested in knowing. I mean, the question I've wanted to know first was, what would you say the Lithuanian tech scene is good at?
Tech
Scene is good at? What do they specialize in? Be it a language or a technology or an attitude?
It's probably two things that really kind of stand out. If you look a bit more historically, it would be like e-government solution providers.
Okay.
Lithuanian IT industry is dominated by bigger companies that used to provide and build government solutions. So something that takes care of the citizens, takes care of the government internal systems and stuff like that. And then the other one is probably a very startup-y environment and the amount of startups that we have in Lithuania. I think we're in the top 3 in the Baltic Sea region in terms of startups per capita in the area. Mm-hmm. So people with the entrepreneurship and the desire and the curiosity to actually build something by themselves is very prevailing in the sort of the tech industry scene, and we see companies like Telesoftas, for example, and right deeper.
We met deeper this morning.
Yeah, it's like some of them are even bigger, like Ruptela, that kind of grew up from a smaller company that ventured out on themselves and became like really global players in their own field. And this trend is continuing. I guess we're just waiting for that right moment when the unicorn hits the market.
Yeah, this is interesting because, Lithuania, for example, had these kind of unicorns a long time ago, and it's given them a confidence. And a lot of the other countries we speak to are waiting for this kind of moment where you become globally more, not just recognized, but also then the confidence. Yeah. Because the interesting thing that we were told by Estonian companies was that the ex-people of Skype and things like that are everywhere, and they pass on this kind of confidence and knowledge to the other people.
Yes.
So that helps a lot because it's someone who's done it before, kind of thing, to learn from. Which is not to say that there aren't people with experience, but it's kind of this, this very well-known company experience.
Yeah, one very easily identifiable, kind of success story. In Lithuania, we have smaller ones, multiple ones, on which we kind of base and fuel the hype.
Well, inadvertently, I have been looking at the products of 2 Lithuanian companies without even knowing, which was Nordtel, because I was looking at VPNs and I didn't realize they were Lithuanian. And I ended up actually going with the trial for Express, but I might change that. No, I don't. And also Datadog, which I didn't realize was Lithuanian until yesterday. More from my more technical work. I did something recently on the sector that they work in. And what would you say there's any cultural or historical reason for any of those areas of expertise or success?
I cannot say it for a fact.
No, for sure.
It's going to be like I don't have a research paper that explains this all, but one thing is, and it comes actually from the investors that have invested in Lithuania throughout the years and their observations. And one thing is very clear is that the curiosity coming out of Lithuanian people within the tech sector is the one of the outstanding qualities. Because what happens, that they come in, they invest in a fairly small country. They say, okay, we have an ambition for a few hundred people office, and then a few years down the line, they exceeded their plan by 4-fold, 5-fold. Yeah. And what happens is like people that's supposed to do simple functions, they start suggesting systematic changes. And this has happened throughout multiple bigger investor stories throughout Lithuania, and I think this is one of the major reasons why we have this startup kind of hype happening here in Lithuania, and why we have in general tech industry, very lively tech industry within the country. It's just that people pick up the problem, or even if there is no evident problem, they seek by themselves how to improve it. Yeah. And from that, you start building either solutions or business cases. That kind of gets the things rolling here. I would put it there.
Do you sort of we had this conversation actually a lot with people in Ukraine, which is probably for various reasons a little further back. Okay. In many things. It's obviously a lot bigger. They have more problems. That countries that, especially on the periphery of Europe or in Europe, as in your case, that have this history of kind of being outsourcing destinations, that it can sometimes in the long run be a hindrance to entrepreneurship because people get comfortable, they're kind of reasonably well paid, they're happy doing the stuff, but then at a certain point maybe people start getting a bit bored with that and they want to do their own thing. But some of the things we heard from Telesoftas, possibly they're going to say this because that's their business,
was that as long as you sort of give the people who work in there enough creativity within that outsourcing business, it doesn't matter too much. But I mean, from your perspective, do you think there may come a time where you have to move forward into doing more new projects, or doesn't matter, or there's a nice mix at the moment? Or
Actually, I think the tag on Lithuania being an outsourcing destination, I think it's passing by, and if it hasn't passed already. Because the reason is, more and more companies that you talk to, some of them used to be outsourcing companies where you come and buy an hour of programmers and they do the specific task based on the order that they receive. And now that you can see the clear trend happening that they get orders to create a solution all the way from A to Z.
Okay, yeah.
And they might be, a B2B kind of request, create me a solution to navigate the naval ship in the oceans based on the, weather currents. And, I don't know, and find a way to work around, the fuel consumption issues. And this is what's happening. They start creating the whole systematic approach as opposed to, just bits and pieces without controlling the whole product. And I think this is like the driving force that, picking up pace within Lithuania. And it kind of correlates with what you said, that, even if you're an outsourcing business and you just give them the freedom to expand as much as you want, this kind of correlates with what we see currently within the industry scene, is that companies themselves and their portfolios have full products and the full responsibility for the product. Some people call it outsharing.
I mean, to be honest with you, my next question was going to be and you sort of asked that answer already, what is the difference between outsourcing and just being an agency? And actually, I think that aspect that you said of you are literally a resource that people just throw work at you versus we need to figure out how to solve a problem, help us solve that problem. Yes. And in some cases, it's a slight grey area. And in other cases, it might be, people like me from older countries being a little looking down ever so slightly and not having a somewhat outdated impression. And sometimes it depends who you speak to and things like that, of course. But yeah.
And I think what it's leading us towards is, Lithuania might not be well known as a consumer-oriented product, developing shop. But with more and more like B2B kind of end-to-end product development, we see a shift in a slight growth, or like the pace of demand is picking up its speed in terms of user experience specialists, product developers, designers, and all of those people. Because sooner or later you start seeing more and more consumer end products coming out of Lithuania.
And to be fair, especially in the kind of world of startups where you maybe will struggle financially for a bit, like consumers don't make you a lot of money. B2B is usually far more lucrative, at least in the short term. I've worked for a few SaaS companies myself, and for some reason you always think that someone paying $5 a month makes a lot of difference, but it doesn't really. It's the people paying $5,000 a month that actually make the revenue for a company.
And we'll see. It helps to have a consumer end product like Estonia has the Skype. It helps sort of branding, and it's like, so this is the place where tech happens.
It's how people know.
But besides that, it doesn't. I don't think it really matters.
No.
In the end, you can't create just as much good by focusing on B2B solutions or even products that use machine-to-machine communication with no user experience and whatsoever.
No, for sure. Exactly.
That requires a great amount of ingenuity and innovativeness and whatever to make things work. And I think Lithuania has potential for both. We might not look as shiny or might not present ourselves as shiny as other countries do.
To be honest,
when you look at
to be honest, I mean, my experience in Europe, if the barometer of shininess is someone like America, then most countries in Europe don't. Maybe the UK slightly. That's about it, really. Like Germany doesn't. Their thing is very different. Like most European countries don't. And to be honest with you, I think that's a good thing. America is often this kind of, and you talked about unicorns, and like a lot of European markets always chase a unicorn, and a lot of the time I say, I think why? Just because you feel like you should, just because all these American kind of programs say you should. Like, I don't think that's the European way. The American way is very much like you win big, you lose big. The European way is a bit more like we're kind of okay, sort of just in the middle, like just being successful enough. Yes. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing sometimes. And this is often, I've worked at plenty of companies where they keep engineering or something like that in Europe, like the real work. It's a bad thing to say. And the marketing and sales happens in the US. The shiny happens there. And it's not necessarily an economy thing.
And I think it's important even for us to understand that, you know, being great at niche things is also just as
exactly.
great. And this is, you know, Lithuania is that.
So what's your niche? What's the Lithuanian niche?
Oh, God.
You have multiple niches, I suppose.
I wouldn't be able to actually name them all. And it's just, I think I'm speaking even from like the company's perspective. You know, you'll make a product or a solution, you know, which doesn't, you know, have a billion users or, you know, 100 million users, whatever. You might be using something or creating something that uses, you know, a few companies, but the impact you create is fairly significant. And, you know, if you ask our like top country leaders, you know, they go around and like start naming is like, oh, lasers, like industrial lasers. Like it's like you go into like really specific, but you're like at the very top of the world suppliers. You know, it's just one of the most prevailing kind of examples.
Is it lasers then?
Lasers.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like it's something that's completely unexpected from Lithuania.
I've always been involved building the Death Star.
So laser technology is something that is being developed on a really advanced level, and they make research-oriented lasers.
Oh, okay.
Not only, you know...
I was joking.
Mass production.
I know lasers, most lasers are not... I don't think any lasers are used in weapons or anything. No, I'm just joking. How long has the organisation existed for?
Since 1994.
So, what's changed over the years? In your knowledge, what's changed?
I myself, I'm with the organization for 3 years now. So the history that I know, it started off as a trade show, actually, a hardware software trade show where you come and look at, you know, the newest monitor, the newest, you know, graphics board, and you know, the personal computers and boxed office suite programs, you know, like all those kind of things. This is how it took off in the 1994. And I think around 2000 or like 1999, they started going into like the political policy development area, where they said, okay, maybe our government should start looking into this digital area as the new future for the country. You know, it signed a political memorandum with all political parties at the parliament at the time, you know, agreeing to develop information-driven society and all that. Then I think that laid a foundation, some sort that, you know, we utilized, especially from the moment we joined the EU, with the great amount of money being invested, or that was invested in Lithuania, to really develop Lithuanian information systems and the government's solutions and all that. That helped the industry to really pick up the pace and boom. The biggest companies at the time, that's how they formed. That's how they got challenging requests.
That was about 2005,
I think it was, you can look at the period, 2004 to 2012, this whole period.
Because the Euro's only 2012, wasn't it? Oh, so it's 15 years.
We joined the European Union in 2004.
And the Euro was more recent.
4. and the euro was recent. So the EU funding era kind of helped us to develop the bigger companies, get the challenges that are bigger in their scale, develop information systems for the whole government that would have to supply, services for 3 million people and stuff like that. So that was one era, I think, that really kind of helped the industry develop. And of course, in parallel, there were all these specialized shops, specializing in telematics, for example. That's why we have a couple of well-known companies like Ruptela that supply over 100 some countries in the world with telematic solutions. So these niche ones, they were growing also at the time. And then I think probably like 2010 and upwards, the startup thing started picking up pace, and became much more kind of fashionable, and also big investors came into Lithuania with like Barclays, with Unia, and CSC at the time. Now it's DXC Technologies. All the big brand companies that hired up a lot of IT talent at the time, and they came in with a fairly low ambition, and they ended up growing multiple times beyond their set targets at the time. And I think we're at the stage now, it's like, okay, so with the government side is, it's happening. It might be a slow period for us right now within the country, but the companies that develop that know-how, now they're looking out at exports, and it's one of the reasons why Lithuanian ICT service exports, or actually IT service exports, I think they grew over 65% last year. So, and it's if I'm not mistaken, it's nearly like the double of what we had in 2015. So if you look at 2017 versus 2015, double the amount of IT service exports. So the companies, that did things internally started turning in mass towards the foreign markets, towards the export markets. At the same time, we had the IT support center boom generated by foreign investment, and then the startup scene kind of picking up fast pace at the same time. And looking onwards, we see that product developing is something that is becoming more and more popular. More and more companies develop products end to end. They don't just outsource anymore. With the IT service centers in Lithuania now, there's a circulation of people, which feeds the startup scene with quality experienced individuals. That's one of the reasons why we think that we got some really good chances to become a fintech hotspot in the continent.
I think everyone is sort of hoping that when London isn't part of the European Union anymore, that they'll be able to pick up the...
And then when you put together the most favorable regulation on the continent together with the talent supply that knows the financial side of things, it's like financially literate and IT professionals in one place, you might have a good recipe for magic to happen.
What do you mean by most favorable policy?
Licensing procedures
for fintech.
Yeah. It takes up to 3 months actually to get licensed in Lithuania, as opposed to probably like a year in London if you want to start operation.
I just thought it was European level actually, but obviously not.
So each country has its own procedures of validating them, and the good thing is if you get licensed in Lithuania, you're part of the whole SEPA area, the European Euro area, and you're good to go. And the bank, the central bank and the Ministry of Finance, what they're doing is they're trying to minimize the bureaucratic obstacles as much as they can. And they actually openly talk about it and present that, we have a nice procedure for you. Why don't you come and do, set up shop here in Lithuania? And along the lines, they are also working on sandboxes. So if you come up with an idea that isn't really, regulated yet, or it's not sure exactly how it's regulated. They have sandboxes where they kind of work with you and guide you through the, through the process while you develop your business model, and they let you operate in this kind of controlled environment to see that everything is in line, as opposed to just kind of saying no, it's not going to work. So they're actually playing around, and they create an environment where you can experiment.
This is what's interesting to me, because Germany, France, maybe UK to a lesser extent, well, they're a little bit more risk-taking. Because they're such big countries, trying new things is always takes a very long time. And one of the appealing things, especially of the Baltic countries, because they're small, but economies are increasing, unlike, say, the smaller countries in the Balkans or something, for example, whose economies are not so strong. So they might want to experiment, but they don't necessarily have the resources to do so. It's actually great places to see a lot of innovation, because you have governments that can change quickly, hear the people quickly as well. One of the quotes that always stuck in my mind when I was interviewing people in Estonia was, if we have a problem, we can send a message to the president, and they're discussing it in Parliament the next day. I don't know if that happens in Lithuania, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it might take a few hours longer.
2 days.
But that's about it. It's
which in Germany, I mean.
It's agility.
Yeah,
pretty much.
It is, and some people might perceive it as a potential weakness because there's more chance of risk, but it's also quicker to recover as well. It's the thing with smaller countries, maybe.
Well, in that way, you can react quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So do you work for the government, or
no?
Okay, because you've sort of already spoken about the positives, but I also always like to ask, and this can be policy, it can be financial, location, whatever reason you like. But what do you think could make being an entrepreneur in Lithuania better or easier?
What could make an entrepreneur?
What's hard here right now? If you want to try an idea you think is going to work, what makes that hard?
Oh, okay. So you're asking about the obstacles.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that right away, and it's both the strength and the weakness, I think, actually. Because if you want to build a successful startup from Lithuania, you are forced immediately to think internationally right away. Yep. So there is this kind of weird extra step where you launch nationally, and then it's like, okay, we need to go abroad, and this becomes like unbelievably challenging. Here, whatever you're doing here, right away you're thinking about international thing. And so it's like one of the things is like, if you do a business in Lithuania, you have a market of 500 million people. And yes, it's both difficult, because when you're launching from here, you have to have knowledge about, that 500 million people market, the home market that we have here, or, the global. So, it's the know-how that you need to gather. But at the same time, it's like very, it's like circulating very easily, so you don't get closed off. You cannot let yourself be closed off within the Lithuanian market, because the market is too shallow for you over here.
I take it mostly as a positive, because I like global thinking people. But I suppose the only negative is it can take a bit longer to do your research. You probably have to learn the language or languages to a certain point that aren't your own. And, we talk about Europe. Europe is not one culture. So, there's certain places where you can maybe get away with doing things in English, or for example, and there's certain others where you couldn't. You have to kind of know what's appropriate where. So, but it does make you more flexible, that's for sure.
It's like one thing we need to just get even better at is attracting more different people to come here and work here. So the more variety that we have, the more experiences we have, the more nationalities, ethnicities, whatever division you want to pick up, the bigger the palette we have, the more successful we can be. I think this is just comes down to really competing globally for the talents and attracting them here. And luckily, we, at least in my opinion, because I myself came back to Lithuania from United States, is where we have a fairly good standard of living here. You live in Vilnius, it's easy to get around, it's a nice city, it's not polluted, you have lots of nature all around. It's like all these benefits as opposed to living in a big metropolis.
I like big cities, but I know what you mean.
I mean, it's definitely a thing of a style and things like that, but we have our strengths. And why would we offer, why would somebody like to live here?
It's a problem I've actually discussed from sort of the other side. It's interesting because, for various reasons, I've gone to a lot of events in the Balkans and spoken to lots of people in the Balkans, and they have a similar problem, but I suppose often with them it's more that people don't really, they're not the most attractive places because they're often poorer countries, so they have very monocultural.
Okay.
And actually the reason we were talking about it, I was doing some talks last year in Serbia about diversity in tech, and I had a lot of people say to me from Hungary and Serbia and Croatia, we like what you say, but we don't have any diversity in our population apart from gender. How can we get diverse people into a workforce when they're not available here? Which is an interesting question and not one I necessarily had an answer to. And the interesting thing with the countries over here is you're right, they're far more attractive, but how do you encourage people more to come? I don't know. And actually the same thing,
Yeah, we have a good example with that. About 4 years ago, Lithuania experienced a game dev boom where people, actually the companies that were operating in Belarus, Ukraine, Russia, moved the whole operation into Lithuania with the whole office and their staff. This causes, en masse sort of relocation of different background people into the country that end up circulating all around and starts to creating a more international sort of ecosystem over here. Also expat community. That helps, the ones that married Lithuanians and moved back here. And also at the same time, it's the Lithuanians who went abroad and start coming back slowly. They bring back all kinds of backgrounds that they gained. We within Lithuania, you can find all kinds of, areas of interest and focus. And like, for example, last week we had a conference, ICT 4D, ICT, Information Communication Technologies for Development in Africa.
Okay.
So we have people flying in from Ghana, from Nigeria, from Tanzania, and that happens every year. And hopefully our partners, Africa, they will be successful in actually building a European Commission funded project where we have an exchange program between like Nigeria and Lithuania, where
that would be because Africa was so underrepresented in tech.
But they have great talents and they have amazing opportunities.
They do.
And for us, it's very important to even build the ties and build a business relationship and share the experiences and perhaps even go and expand the startup scene over there. And we have few startups that did that.
So on that note, though, like what skills do you think are mostly lacking in Lithuania?
What skills? I can say what is up and coming demand.
Okay, yes, that's the same thing. I think that's maybe a more positive way of saying it.
Because where we see that we will need more people sooner or later, and it's very directly tied with the newest developments, is the user experience, product development, cybersecurity. It's these areas that are picking up speed in terms of their growth, hence the demand will go up. We see the demand going up, and this is where we'll need the talent supply to pick up the pace as well.
Okay.
But in general, I think, when you speak in IT terms, it's like anything goes. It's like you go anywhere you go. I don't know a country that has oversupply. The world is just absorbing all the IT people.
I heard some people say that here could do with more skills and people, sort of the ancillary to the development, like people who are good at marketing and talking about a technical product to people, say like that. Maybe. I mean, as a job, this is what I do as a job, but I don't work in sales, so it's not always sales, but just people who are better at explaining things, maybe, whether it be for marketing, for sales, or just for user experience.
Yeah, and I think what you're getting to is this like sensitive area of Lithuania, and I don't know. Is it like we look at our neighbors, and some of our neighbors, like for example in Estonia and stuff, how they're able to portray themselves and present themselves.
Okay, espresso.
Yeah. And here we are, all a bit too humble at instances.
It's not unique to here.
How do we pull this? How do we pull this trick and actually present what we're doing and what we're having here in an appropriate, approachable manner and stuff like that? Because sometimes you have to. I think, in my opinion, is that foreigners might have to dig a little bit extra to discover Lithuania.
So I guess the final point there would be what would your selling points be? And this is actually a thing I've heard, especially in the Baltic countries. The challenge they have is, say they want to get someone from America or the UK. The immediate reaction of those people is they look at, say, the wage and they think it's less. When, of course, obviously, when you look at cost of living and things like that, it isn't probably. It's probably, if not equal. Yeah. But what would be some, ignoring that side of things, what would be some other encouraging words to foreigners to come here?
Besides the salary?
Besides the fact that, ignore that, it's a very good quality of life. What would be other positives?
Besides the good quality of life.
It's a pretty good one, I know.
It encompasses the whole thing. I don't know what's there. What else is there?
Maybe I answered my own question.
Yeah, but the quality of life is it depends on your taste.
True.
It's a smaller yet international city. It's a European capital nonetheless. If you're talking about Vilnius, but other cities are picking up pace too.
We went to Kaunas yesterday.
If you talk about wages, I don't know why does anybody have to even think that you have to stick to Lithuanian average salary?
No,
because it's it doesn't really matter.
It's the same in Berlin. The Berlin average wage, because it's still old East Germany, is relatively low. But if you're working for any of the startups or any international companies, it's way up.
Yeah.
So it's not.
It's just this is where you live and work. Yeah. But your market and your business model is global.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. Well, we've been cutting down on requirements and the procedures in terms of our migration.
That's actually rare to hear in the modern age.
And I was the one actually working myself back in the day on cutting the procedure times and the blue card processing and all stuff like that. But now it's I think it's 2 or 3 times the average Lithuanian salary, which is, I don't know, maybe slightly over 2,000 euros. You can get the permits for 3 years right away. I mean, it shouldn't be a problem. I don't know. It's more of a how do we get more people to use this procedure?
You have countries like France, Germany, UK who are not actually very foreign friendly, really. And they can be hard, they can be expensive, they can be a struggle. But they have such large economies, they don't have to try very hard to attract people. So they put up all these barriers because they know people will come anyway. Whereas the smaller countries are the complete opposite. They actually want people and they work extra hard to make it easy, and yet people still don't come. And it's you kind of have to counter this weird kind of just black hole effect of some of these other countries. And it's strange because most of the foreigners I meet who move to countries like this end up loving it for that precise reason, because you're actually far more welcome.
You were like a star.
And thank you for listening. That was our interview with Monica from bit&byte and Paulius from infobalt. If you enjoyed the show, you can find previous episodes at gregariousmammal.com/podcast. And you can support the show at gregariousmammal.com/support, or rate us wherever you heard this episode. And you can buy merchandise and support the show in other ways at gregariousmammal.com/support. And finally, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/gregariousmammal. So thank you very much for listening, and we will talk to you again soon.